was horrified. It hit me like a ton of bricks when I looked in the mirror, how distorted my old appearance to now was. How I was screaming inside about this huge mistake. This question of my self-worth was suddenly down in the dumps because my lips were wrong. And as you can see on the thumbnail of this video, yeah, they looked pretty crazy, those lips. Let me tell you a little bit of a story of when in my 30s, I went and got lip fillers. So I was around age 36. I'm 43 now. It was Sydney. And back then it wasn't as common. It was a little less common, still getting common. And I remember being quite impressionable. I had very low self-esteem still at that age. I was a late bloomer, if you like, in terms of becoming more conscious and becoming more aware of who I really am. And so my strength and my safety was in the outside world, was in the external world. And so part of that was my appearance. In fact, if you've looked at any of my past videos, you know that I suffered from an eating disorder, very serious, called bulimia, for 20 years. And this was all based on, initially, the trigger of needing to create a new appearance to be accepted and loved. And so I did that through food. So I very heavily relied on my appearance to feel good about myself. And the irony is, looking back at the photos of me in my 20s and 30s, I looked so unhealthy and sad. Yes, I might have been a good weight, but I had big rings under my eyes. My face was puffy from all of that purging. I had bloodshot eyes. I had a depletion in energy, and all of this can be seen. Others can pick this up. But I was very unconscious to all of this. So getting lip fillers was just another tool, I thought, that would add a little bit more self-esteem, self-worth to my, my limited things that I was clutching on to feel like I was worthy of anything in my life. And so it was $500, and I went and got these lip fillers, and it was, I can't remember how many mils, but I walked home kind of proud of myself. I had bruises already starting on my lips. And then I thought very ignorantly, naively, that I needed to double the dose. And I figured, if I'm feeling this good about myself, then what about a little bit more? How about a little bit more, just to, tweak it, just to feel a little bit more better about myself and a little bit more attractive to how others saw me. And, things will be a little bit even more better and happier in my life, albeit the illusion of happiness, because I really didn't have the experience of true happiness in my life at any point yet. So I went back and I got another amount of the same dose. And I got home and I was horrified. It hit me like a ton of bricks when I looked in the mirror, how distorted my old appearance to now was. How I was screaming inside about this huge mistake. This question of my self-worth was suddenly down in the dumps because my lips were wrong. And as you can see on the thumbnail of this video, yeah, they looked pretty crazy, those lips. I remember crying, taking photos of my lips, trying to get into acceptance of how they looked, and I couldn't. I panicked. I called the injector, and they were left for the day. So I panicked all night long and then called first thing in the morning, and they have this reverse thing where you can get it dissolved. You lose all that money, $1,000, but I was ready to just like, help. Of course, I get there in the morning and the injector nurse reassures me and says, no, 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 you look amazing. She had the same kind of lips, which is funny. And so I kind of decided to accept them as they were. And I did get a lot of funny looks from my colleagues. So I worked in a gaming office for the slots industry back then. Like I said, I was not aligned with my true purpose in this life for a long time, for most of my life. And so I worked for a gambling industry, a gambling giant, and it never felt quite right to do that. But I worked with amazing people. These were engineers, software engineers. These were artists, graphic artists, and I managed the office. And most of these were guys who were, you know, kind of introverted and intelligent, and were not interested so much in appearance, and probably weren't so conscious about what was going on within me, which probably mirrored the amount of consciousness I had about what was going on within me. And I got some strange looks from them, and it makes sense now. I thought I could get away with it. I remember asking my boss, who was kind of my friend, and she said, no, 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 don't worry. They won't notice. They're guys. And that was reassuring. Of course, now I recognize that, of course, my lips were very, very noticeable. So I wanted to share that story with you because the other day I had a huge insight about this experience. I noticed a girl with similar lips to how I had gone with my injections the other day when I was at the beach. And for a moment there, I thought, I wonder what she's feeling about her appearance. And her partner was there with her, and I thought, I wonder what he thinks, you know, from the person he used to be with to the person who now looks differently. Out of curiosity, I just wondered that. And then I thought about, I immediately could not help but step into her shoes and empathize with that whole line of thinking that I needed, that lip injections were important, that they were going to improve life, that they were going to enhance happiness, they were going to create more self-esteem and confidence. And I remember feeling a revisiting of all the emotions I went through when I went and did that and had that level of perception. And I immediately, as I said, felt that compassion because I've been through it. Again, I'm not saying anything's wrong with this, and I do not believe that we should be judging each other for right and wrong. We're all at different levels of growth, learning, transformation, evolution, and no level is particularly more important than the other. So everything we do is important. Everything we do is serving us to bring up some sort of evolution or expansion, whether that brings positive or negative experiences out of it, out of the choice we make, the choices we make, all here to serve us. That's my belief. And that seems to work very well for me, having that belief. So again, I'm not judging anyone for the choices. I'm just wanting to show you that the insight I had was realizing that when I look back at my former self, the 36-year-old girl who had triple-sized lips, who was sad, who was so self-conscious, who was so touchy about her self-esteem, and it could plummet in a second by someone's look or someone's comment. It was so fragile, my self-esteem, and it would roll around and be thrown around and blown around by the external world. And so really it didn't matter what enhancements I did in my external world, I would still be thrown around and blown around, depending on how triggered I was, or, you know, what someone would say in my external environment. So thinking back, I remember that for myself, and I remember the feelings of shame, of feeling lost, of feeling insecure, of never feeling I was good enough. And I think that's the key theme, is deep within me, I had no love for myself, because I believed that love came from deserving through something I did, produced, achieved, through looking good. Everything that was in the external world would provide me with love, but not lasting love. It was transient. And that's how I believed the world was, how my life was, who I was. And yet I empathized and had much compassion for this former self, because her pain was real. She didn't need anyone judging her. She needed someone to sit with her and to just be with her, to allow her to give herself permission to be with herself long enough to stop giving her power away and to begin to tap into her internal guidance system. Because she used to spend every living, waking moment busy, distracted, trying to fix herself to be worthy of love. But now I see that I am worthy of love for just being as you are. There's nothing you have to do or change or enhance. And there's no love from the world that is sustainable. It has to come from within you. And it's actually not something within this simulation at all. It's quite the opposite. Our true self is eternal and cannot ever be changed or flown or blown around by the wind. That is the part of us that we must meet in stillness by just being, rather than being distracted in doing. All I needed back then really was someone to tell me this, was someone to sit with me and ask me how I am, and allow me to express all that anger and sadness and fear that I was deeply repressing within me, with loving awareness, holding space for me to do that. Because I had learned the opposite. I had learned to push all of that away, to judge it, to fix it, to block it, to distract myself from it. So I never got to know me or love me. And so all these external band-aids came thick and fast in my life, because I was clutching on anything that I could find to fill that void within. The foundation for a happy, peaceful life here has to be recognizing we are divine, pure loving awareness, having a human experience. And that we do not rely on anything outside in the world to remember that we are love and we deserve love. Once we get that, and this is my personal journey, we're no longer blown around by the outside world. And this goes for any external experience that's causing us turmoil or suffering. We really can build up that inner pillar of strength, because we are not the body or the mind. When we go into stillness and access our true spirit, we are connecting to source, the true I am presence that we really truly are. We are all powerful, and we do not need anything in this very transient world to feel better. So I was very compassionate about my former self in that moment, being reminded by the girl on the beach. And it made me realize that I loved and accepted her. Previously, I would have looked back at her when I was more unconscious and judged her. Oh, she was a mess. Oh, she had no idea. Oh, she was ridiculous. Oh, what a silly twit, you know. I would have judged and labeled and unconsciously actually created more separation and more pain and suffering, because we have to remember the law of correspondence. As without, so within. As within, so without. As above, so below. What we judge outside of ourselves, even if it's our former selves, is really us judging ourselves in the present as well. We have to accept every stage that we've been on, to accept ourselves now. So realizing this lesson, I realized that yesterday's you is not you right now today either. You know, yesterday's you, you might have been snappy at your husband yesterday, or angry at somebody in traffic. And when you think of you yesterday doing that, what is your first reaction? Are you judging you? Are you condemning you? Are you shaking your head at you? If you are, then stop. Because you from yesterday needs your loving acceptance. I'm not saying approval here, I'm saying acceptance. You from yesterday needs to be seen, heard, acknowledged, and validated just as much as you do now here in this moment. And again, you're giving yourself permission to be seen, acknowledged, validated here when you do that to you yesterday. Loving and accepting who you were yesterday will bring you to a place of loving and accepting who you are today. And all of this will take you out of the small self, or that programming that is not really you, or the mind programming. We want to move down from the mind into the heart. We can only do that through leaning on our internal guidance system, or source, who we really are. And this will bring you into your eternal higher self, who transcends this world and its limitations. And all of the external worlds, storms and chaos that move in and out of our lives will not create ripples in our peace and love in our life. Hope that's been helpful for you. Please have a beautiful week and love your former self. See you.